All right. Let's see if everything comes up. Looks good. And I think we are in a good place. Let's switch over. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of GPT with me. Um, Gosh, it's been a few days since I've done a live stream. Last live stream, I was doing some work, kind of using my technique of just really relying on ChatGPT to kind of prompt the code into existence, offering suggestions, trying to take full advantage of the multimodal capabilities there. And then I realized something. I kind of ended or started at some point in the last session saying, oh, I'll probably do 2 today, and then disappeared for a few days. What I realized is that while the technique is very interesting as a way to kind of explore what it's like to co-create with generative AI, it's not so much fun to constantly do that on camera. I wasn't quite reading the code as much as I should be. I wasn't probably taking those extra few seconds to kind of think through things. Because I was trying to fit it into an hour outlay as much as possible. The good news is that I've been working on it behind the scenes. It's evolved, I think, a fair bit. My goals shifted maybe slightly. Not really. I think the goal is ultimately to see if it can build something with generative AI for generative AI, with generative AI, with kind of overloaded there, that people might find value in. So kind of trying to reframe against that goal. Less now about kind of the technique that's there. Got some scripts. I'll talk about that in the recap. And more about kind of pushing this idea out and pushing into some of the other concerns that sit in this space. It's not just about being able to create code. It's like, how do I now work with prompts, and what does it mean to include that in my software, with an eye towards, also what does it mean to kind of manage systems or worry about deploying systems with that in scope as well. So current progress is good. You can see things are quite a bit different here. I've got a login with Google. Kind of works. There's a few things that aren't 100%. I was just kind of playing around to see if I could get it in. This might require some real eyes from me. It doesn't seem to remember the session, even though I said put it in cookies and whatnot. So I'll click the button. I'll click my 8th account. And it logs me in. It pulls my icon, gets my name, and there's a sign out. There's still notifications. Not using those anymore. Everything happens directly here. Obviously, just testing. That's not supported, so it's not going to work. If we bring this up and we look for links, kind of my little collection of ready-made stuff. We could paste the link and do the work there. Additionally, we can also bring it up here. This enhancement section is what I'm going to be getting to, kind of the reason it's called evaluating prompt management tools. Is so it still does the same things. This works the drag and drop region, does the transcription. I really didn't say much in the short video blah blah space. It's going to give me a recording. The idea is that I can come through and I could summarize, I could format for readability, remove filler words. Maybe I want to get into multimodal stuff, and I say generate me 6 images inspired by this. All sorts of different things we can start to do. So the idea is this now becomes kind of a real basic landing page. Hey, here's what we do. Here's why we think we're solving problems. And this is kind of a basic demo. I'll probably drop the Vimeo off the public facing. That's hit or miss, and something I'd rather lock behind at least an account so I know who's doing it. So offer some basic things. Probably just kind of do a couple things like summarize, maybe keyword extraction, and generate images, just to kind of showcase a flashy little demo that people can feel, woohoo, that's cool. Bigger picture outside of transcribing my daughter's principal's video recordings, which are longer to watch than just typing an email. Ultimately, I think there's a walled garden experience here. Kind of, I think I've alluded to it before. There's an interface where you can bring your content in, you can chat with it, maybe you can build some small workflows around it. The idea being kind of unlocking generative AI and a bit of additional processing in a no-code type way. Just here's some stuff, give me a small workflow, let me do things. Or it could be like, hey, here's 10 videos I want to chat with to explore this concept. The way I do things, I'm really just kind of really looking to replicate some of the things I find value in. things that I believe other people have found value in through conversation, talking to them. All with the goal being able to, it's a free account and it's like a $5 a month of unlimited account. Like just want people to use it, just want people to see value, and to go from there. Next features, the next feature is very much getting this summarized piece to work. Once that's there, I've got a full landing page. Obviously, I'm doing some coding off screen around getting the auth to work, putting in a dashboard, logins, all the things that come with kind of making this more just one very small React page, kind of moving into the, can I still continue to co-create things with generative AI that people will find valuable? Question. Additionally, what else would be here? And then once I kind of get this locked down, the demo's good, I'll probably put it up, say, hey, people, give it a try. I won't have the login stuff there. There's a few friends that want to have a look at it. I'll continue to work on that. I'm doing some rate limiting stuff. I still need to go through the DevOps. There's still a lot of background things to happen. But at the end of the day, it's, let me just bring other window over here. It's all about doing some of that off camera and kind of focusing on more interesting things like the LLM Ops. I wanted to look at CodeRabbit. So it's a tool I've used for code reviews in the past. You can see things are here. I've got a UI router request that I merged in. So basically, I was trying to do the routes. Can I have a login route, dashboard route, that kind of thing. I can't remember if I mentioned CodeRabbit on the stream or not, just kind of given that there was a many-month break between when I started and where I am now. I should probably be about 60 or 70 episodes in if I kept going. But it's a really interesting little AI-driven code review tool. It's free for open source, so this is going to remain open source, at least for the short term. And it gives me kind of a nice walkthrough, outlines the changes. Yeah, here we go. I really like the sequence diagram, kind of drawing like what's changed, what the flow looks like. Just adds a little bit of richness and additional context to the thing. My previous experience was this thing was overly verbose. I would give you all sorts of suggestions to change, and you would change them, and it would just keep nitpicking on things. And it's just like, well, this is not really useful. I'm spending more time reading this thing and deciding whether or not to ignore or accept. Okay, it's going to tell me some things about some other code that changed, the review detail. You can chat with it, you can mention things. I'm liking CodeRat's feedback so much better than it used to be. It really is. I think it's improved a great deal. And as someone who's really focused on the experimentation of co-creating with generative AI, it's interesting to, write with generative AI through prompts. That's basically all I'm doing, just telling it to correct, kind of using the multimodal, feeding the images back in, telling it there's an issue, which has been really good at structuring the code, following patterns. I do this, kind of getting a basic code review, looking things over. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be just committing to main anymore. I believe I've locked that branch down. Just trying to mature my practices from a quick little hack into something that potentially has legs and that can be deployed and people could use. Kind of got to start growing all parts of the process there. But that's been a pleasant surprise. So what's prompted me? So LLM tool evaluation. So I've got some criteria here I want to talk through, and then I'm going to look at a few different options. I just kind of picked a few. I picked two, and two are known to me. And I think the important thing here is that it's a brand new space, right? The inclusion of prompts and bringing generative AI into your software is probably as impactful as it is as impactful as databases. There was a point in my time in my life where I just wrote against text files. The 90s databases were a thing. I just wasn't aware of them. I was a teenager, just trying to figure this out. And as things progress, databases bring a whole new level of concerns, schemas, and migrations, and now the whole SQL non-SQL debate. I guess when in doubt, always just use Postgres, honestly. It'll support just about any use case you have and scale well. But that aside, prompts are a new beast. Like, there's a whole new set of concerns that come with them. As you can see here, I've got this prompt and model management concern. I need to be able to experiment fast, right? I need to be able to kind of get my prompt in, kind of play with model versions. Maybe it's Claude, maybe it's various versions of ChatGPT, kind of see them side by side, version control that stuff, get my evals and my prompt tests there to make sure things are staying within kind of the bounds that I expect them to, and really pushing forward on those pieces of the puzzle. Not everything is as mature here as I would like. I don't want to be including prompts in a repo and then having evals somewhere else. Like, this feels very disjointed. I'm very much of the belief that prompts fit more in the product and design space than they do in the engineering space. Yes, we need to know how to use them. Yes, we need to know how to tweak them. But ultimately, we should be working in conjunction with the product folks to make sure that these things are meeting their goals. I would believe they have more ownership over the prompts and the evals and that type of thing. We're the operator of them. Alongside comes LLM observability. At the end of the day, I need to know my latency. Is it high? Is it low? What's the average? I want to know cost. I want to know kind of what it's taking to run various prompts. And I want to know, I'm going to call it relevant responsiveness. How relevant is it? I'll probably set it some evals or other criteria to kind of make sure that it's some frequency, that it's, on brand, it's being helpful. The things that I want the system to do, the characteristics I want it to exhibit, I need to make sure I'm monitoring, right? I got to have some sort of eye on them. And that's before we get into some of the other nitty gritties, more on the engineering side around kind of guardrails and other things we could do at an engineering level to kind of keep our prompts a little more on track. And the last one's an absolute non-negotiable. I think, as long as there's some version of these other two in a tool, I'm willing to entertain it. I will not proxy. Absolutely will not proxy my requests through someone's SDK to OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever other provider I have. And that in itself is probably another criteria there. Models provided access to. So what models does it work with? I'd really like Grok to be able to, I don't know, run some fast inference experimentation. Maybe it's super awesome and it can be really quick, and I can really, hammer at the latency side of things in certain scenarios if I've got the flexibility. There's probably caching and other techniques that I'll discover along the way here. But no proxies because of latency. I don't need another piece of your well-intended but ultimately going to slow me down middleware sitting in there trying to inspect my stuff, adding that extra little bit of overhead, both in terms of network latency and just total round trip time, I guess. About kind of the same thing, but so not non-negotiable. For proxies, it's out. It just I can't do it. You got to be able to do this kind of as a sidecar load, something that I can work with. More cross-cutting concern than this is the one true path to get there. If my my database repositories had to proxy every freaking, I don't know, SQL Server or MySQL or PostgreSQL through some other arbitrary layer, and then go there. I guess arguably, if you're using monitoring, Datadog, there might be some additional process monitoring there, but I'm not going through specifically going through a whole additional set of tooling. Again, it's the easiest way to solve it. I just know for a fact it does slow things down. So we're going to spend the bulk of the time kind of looking through some options around this. And then I don't know if I'm even going to get here. There's probably so many things to worry about once I get set up and logged in and going. This will likely carry over to the next one where I start kind of adding in these transcription actions. Ultimately, the goal would be to kind of build towards a real simple no-code workflow. Maybe you can do an action and email me, or do an action and upload. Like real simple, like I want to be able to build a couple step apps, a little bit more than the chat experience, but still have that kind of chat experience where it gets it. You can do a few things. Maybe I can still chat with the raw. Maybe I can bring my own transcripts, like just really trying to focus on this small problem space and what are the things I can do from a product and tooling perspective to support that. All right, so back to the evaluation. How did I get some options? Well, I found this really cool GitHub repo, awesome LLM Ops. I wouldn't agree with the entire categorization of things here, but ultimately it's a good jumping off point. There's a lot to consider here: security, ops, search, AI, code AI, training, data, deployments, performance. I think a lot of this is well intended. I'm not sure what's under that one. I don't remember. What do we have? Code AI. Oh, so there's some other coding tools, Tabby, CodeGen. You kind of all know my opinion by now if you've been watching on these code generation, traditional code generation tools. Still thinking about building Codex. I just want to get this to the point where I can at least get it deployed and see if there's any value with it. Yeah, lots of things to consider. Lots of links here. I would recommend. Link will be in the description. Go through, just have a look through it, see what's there. See what might fit your purpose. At the very least, it's an interesting collection of resources. LLM, I know Arise, spoken to some folks there. It was started in the ML world, trying to move to the LLM world. There's some interesting tools for debugging, like embeddings and very ML-y type things. If you're in that space, awesome. Comet's another interesting one. We've got GPT Cache, which is a caching sitting kind of along some observability. So I'm saying LLMOps is a little broad here. But have a look. You never know what's going to come through. Just because I pick a tool and I find it useful doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be the right tool for you. I would strongly recommend thinking about it in terms of these things. Maybe proxies aren't as much of a deal breaker for you. That's fine. Great. Don't worry about tools that have proxies then, at least the monitoring and observability side of things. The other concern would be is, as I start putting more tools in, I don't want to have a million different platforms that I have to interact with, right? So, arguably the prompts sit next to the observability and the evals all sit in one spot, and I don't have different platforms for that. I may still have other things I have to layer on, right? I'm still probably going to have my Datadog. I'm sitting here. I'm still probably going to have guardrails, that might have another, depending on the implementation, the flavor, there may be another additional set of servers and requirements. Like it starts to get, thick. The stack starts to get pretty thick here as we go forward. I'm just going to close that. I don't think I'm doing any ChatGPT stuff. So I went through, I pulled some links and started looking. So the first one I came across was something called Prompt Layer. Edit, evaluate, deploy, repeat, manage, monitor prompts with your whole team, including non-technical stakeholders. So this really starts to dial in on kind of that experimentation, prompt management piece. It feels like, at least from what little bit I looked at it, enough to kind of go, okay, cool, this is something I would consider. That they're really coming from a similar perspective. You got prompt versioning, A/B testing. You can deploy prompts. Compare usage and latency. Great. I don't have to wait for engineering to push a build. Like that's the goal. That's really the reason to disconnect these two pieces, right? Because it's something that can have such a profound impact on the experience. It shouldn't necessarily be a immutable artifact that goes out with the build process. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe history will teach me that that's a really bad idea. In the 20-some years, I've seen various attempts at doing things with databases that were static versus not like. I feel I'm right. I feel this is the right way to go. Collaboration, nice. Evals, nice. We've got some case studies here. Code editor, new prompting, giving me versions. Should always version, kind of show me what's there. I like the passing. Evaluate iteratively. So there's a back test, there's regression, compare messages, one off. Monitoring usage, which is great. Cost and latency trends. Like these are all things that I'm like, cool, this is really, really useful. Oh, hold on. I think I have an account already with them. Oh, log in. Now I don't remember what it was. Oh, well, there we go. I do remember what it was, apparently. It's hilarious. All right. So we're in, and you can kind of see there's a couple different options here. Okay, upgrade to a paid plan to fine-tune a model. Not what I'm interested in. I'm just in my own little personal space. Registry, prompt registry. Manage your prompt templates programmatically or through the web editor. That's interesting. So let's go look at the sample. There's a few different versions here. So I can get, there's an exposing the system prompt, kind of dialing in what this generative AI instance is supposed to do. There's some user stuff, assistance. It's not really giving me any metrics because I haven't done anything. It's telling me this is in staging, this is in production. That all seems awesome. If I go to the playground, here we go. Here I can kind of start playing around with things. Looks like I could integrate some tool usage. So there's a topic, there's a summary, input variables. Also just run requests as it is. Okay, it's trying to do something. I don't know if I have to plug in API keys. I probably do. That would look to be the case here. Oh, I didn't give it the right information. Input variables. I don't like the fact that I got to keep adding my own. Oh, that's weird. Bucket list. Copy. So, I don't know. Topic. Save. Run request. Let's see what it does. It's a bit odd that there's an assistant here, and I think it's meant to call tools. Like the interface, I think, is well intended. It just seems a little bit extra complicated. I am struggling as a first-time user to understand every little bit. Let's see what the eval section looks like. How good are your prompts? Build flexible pipelines to run batch prompts, compare results, and chain them together. Fantastic. I like the fact that you can score, you can do regression test type things in a CI pipeline. Though if this is a dynamic component sitting outside of the CI pipeline, it may have less impact, less value. It's probably more the observability, continuous monitoring side than there is specifically on one thing. Where's the analytics? What do we got here? Okay, so average request, cost, total requests, total tokens. That's an interesting one, total tokens. So it's giving me that depth of observability, cost, latency over time. So this looks like a pretty good tool. The only thing that would put me off is cost. Quite honestly, and I get this space is quite, it's full of a lot of tooling that it is going to cost money, right? Like if you want to move into the LLM Ops, you want to have a way of doing this, you're likely going to have to put some bucks down if you're using someone else's framework. It's just, there's very little way around that. So do they go home, reader docs? Let's just have a quick little look at the docs. Let's see what they've got to say. Quick start, migration guide, project example, so key concepts. Okay, so they're trying to give me a stack here, which I'm not fully on board about. You'll understand if you watch my stuff, or if you continue watching it. I'm not a huge fan of vector databases, at least kind of just using them to wield as a magic wand to solve all your search problems. Been doing it long enough to know things very rarely work that well. Okay, so prompt registry, essay. Okay, so it looks like decent-ish documentation. Prompt templating. So eval, this is something I could probably get behind. I haven't fully decided which version I'm going to use. Well, I do know I'm not going to use one. That's the next one I'm going to look at. So this is cool. This is something that, let's create a template system. You are a helpful video editing person that takes transcripts and summarizes them. Okay, so that's the first option here, the summarize. Just trying to play with it. Create templates. Edit version. Do I run any evaluations? No. So I could run evals. Oh, prompt a title. Video summary. Okay, and then, oh, okay, I can use prompt. Oh, that's interesting. Snippets, that's pretty useful. That would be awesome to kind of share across things. Summary. Create template. Init version. Go next. I don't want to do any of that. Okay, cool. Really horrible thing here. And we'll see if we can go to the playground and run request. Okay, so it keeps, that's unfortunate. Okay, cool. I gave you the information. Will you take it? I gave it the really simple little blah blah space. It's trying to run. Seems to. Oh, I called it summary. It should probably be transcript. Yeah, I haven't used this tool before. I just kind of had a look externally. I would say this experience right now is being slightly annoying. It's not quite as fluid as I would hope for. It keeps telling me there's no things here. I probably need to go read a bunch of documentation. So, I'll give it a B plus for now. Doing okay, but could be better. The other one is an open source tool. I'm not going to set it up. I'm not going to run it. I think they have a online version. In fact, that's the one thing I didn't see here. Where can I tell it to use a different, maybe it's under advanced. Here we go. Here's where I can do the model selection. So let's say I wanted to do a 4.0 mini. I wanted to play with the temperature, seed, response format, text JSON. There we go. These are the things that, as you get into prompt management and playing with systems, you're going to want maximum tokens. These are all important. All right. Anyway, back over to this one. It's an open source toolkit. It allows me to do the same thing: central prompt management, streamline prompt design and versioning, deployments, observability, cost transparency. It's got a lot of really good stuff. Here's the GitHub repo. It's got some caching as well, which is a different thing. It's open source, so theoretically you could download it and modify it to fit your needs. Happy days, right? Node and Python supported, LangChain support, which is good. Just because LangChain seems to be kind of the standard framework people want to use. And if I recall correctly, you can start plugging in different pieces of observability using that framework. So it starts to address some of the proliferation of frameworks and platforms by kind of offering you a framework to plug your frameworks into, which sounds kind of silly, but from what I've looked at, it does seem as though there's utility in just that singular aspect. Create the infrastructure for me to plug into. Okay, so if I go back here, I'm just going to go to their main site. I think this is it. Yeah, the developer first AI platform, build, test, monitor, ship instantly. They've got a little explainer video. Things look pretty cool. So we got some prompt management here. You can make a prompt. It's got the same kind of handlebar type syntax. It's got the same settings that people can expose. And then the handlebar syntax seems to be standard. It's got the observability, so we can see this. We can see cost. It's got some troubleshooting, so you can inspect in real time. The ability to multi-version, to have multiple users in version. So it does a lot of the basic stuff I'd be looking for. So the goal here would be for me not run another thing. I get it if I have to. Sure, it'd be nice, to have a little more flexibility, maybe reduce cost. I already have the infrastructure. You can see I did poke at this one a little bit more. Excuse me. So I've got my costs, request duration, success. You can see the various requests. I haven't done anything with it. Here's the prompts. Let's make a new prompt. Let's call it video summary. Okay, well that's an annoyance. I like to be able to put spaces between things. Obviously using it for a key somewhere. Okay, so everything's coming soon. This is quite limiting for me. One of the things I would desperately want to try is trying Anthropic versus OpenAI versus some other model I might be running somewhere versus Grok. Probably Anthropic, Grok, and OpenAI. Those would be the three. I don't have to do anything. I can plug API keys in and go. Same or similar typical max response length, temperature, all this fun stuff. Let's go here. I'll have to dig into what I didn't do right there. So I say transcript, commit, init, commit, save it. All right, cool. Let's test it. Oh, I gotta put an OpenAI API key in. OpenAI API key. That's a mouthful. How to consume is gonna take me to some nice documentation. Super awesome. Okay, so I gotta put some keys in. And oh, I don't like this at all. They're proxying things, just like the other one. I know prompt layer does proxying things too. That's a slight worry. I want to be able to pull my prompts and settings and just pass it through to the OpenAI client. Ideally, there's maybe an abstraction I can just pass it through, and the client gets injected and goes. Excuse me, but that's a different bridge to be crossed at a different time. So then it comes through, does the completion. So obviously because it's proxying, it's doing all the kind of costing and latency stuff itself because it's in full control rather than kind of a callback, like start, stop, kind of a stopwatch type concept without proxying. But that's okay. They're trying to get me up. They give me TypeScript and Python. Those are probably the two places I would use this. Yeah, it definitely has an OpenAI API. Wrapper. Oh well, people doing different things. Okay, so if I want to test this, oh yeah, that was it. I hit the API key issue. Got some variables, I've got versions here. Okay, doesn't really give me a nice version number or anything, so it's okay. It's trying. It does have that open source feel where there's something there, but it's not maybe as feature rich as the more paid for versions, and I'm okay with that. It is fully self-hostable. There's Docker Compose. You can run it yourself and get going. So, if you wanted some kind of like local dev instance that's maybe disconnected, you could, have some kind of like wrapper that wraps the production versus dev and then pushes things to the right place. It gets super confusing. I would think you're probably going to have one instance all the way through. Like one instance you're just going to use through dev all the way to production, and vice versa. What you might want to change is the underlying technology. Am I using Pezos, or am I using prompt layer, or am I using some other product, and how do I make that piece dynamic? Which is likely the topic I'm going to explore when I start integrating this into the actual Scribe AI. Now, obviously, it's a really simple thing. We're just doing a post transcription action, but it still, I do believe, facilitates some type of product here. Excuse me. All right, sorry, little sneezy sneeze. Okay, cool. So those are the two, prompt layer, Pezos, interesting. There's another one I want to talk about. Now, this one's a little less focused on kind of the end user. It's out of Boulder area here. Wonderful folks, Ian and Eric and Jeremy are the three folks I know over at FreePlay. And I really like their product a lot. I'm not going to get into the details too much, but it does everything plus some. Like they're partnered with, Mongo and a few other big players in the industry. Fast experimentation. It's really easy to kind of get your prompts and compare them side by side, different model versions, which seems to be a piece that's really missing in some of the other platforms. I think that alone is what really curries favor with me on this product, in that I'm able to do that comparison, and it's so weird, just changing minor versions of like ChatGPT and getting the latest versus the previous one and seeing just how things differ, understanding how I can push that down to maybe a 3.5 or a 4.0 mini, reducing my costs. So if I'm taking kind of a FinOps, a cost perspective on this, it really becomes important. Can I get that same level of fidelity that I'm looking for in a lower version model with this particular prompt or not? They've got an excellent evaluation suite. It's really easy to build up. It's really easy to automate. We've got some good observability here, so I can check my costs. I can check my latency. I can check my relevancy of sorts. There's a data labeling and curation piece. This is always the eval side. This can be a little troubling. It just takes time, effort, and energy. There's no good way. And they've got a really simple SDK, and they do not proxy. Most importantly, they do not proxy their stuff. There is an option to proxy, and I think that's where they started, but they've gone away from that. They definitely have gone away from that. In fact, if you want to see some of that, I do have a repo. Let me go pull that repo up. This is the problem of having 91 repositories under just this account. Don't mind half these thingies. Getting started with FreePlay. All right, so let's go look at the Python. We've been doing a lot of Python here. It's super simple. You're gonna load the two API keys, obviously FreePlay and the OpenAI API key. You're gonna tell it the base URL. I mean, this might be old. I did this 6 months ago. Obviously, it's a very up and coming product. I've got the prompt name, environment, prompt variables. Like, there's probably better ways to manage this. This was really for an internal hackathon at 8th Light, just getting people up, getting them working. So then you plug that into the client, so it knows the FreePlay key and the base API to use. Then you tell it to format the prompt based on the project, the template name, the environment. So if it's staging or if it's production, this is kind of how you version things in this world. You get the stopwatch concept. You've got a real raw OpenAI API client. Hurrah! I plug things in. I'm going to give it the model info. I'm going to give it the messages. It's going to get the formatted prompt. And it's gonna stopwatch the end, right? So I want to know start, stop. That's latency stuff. Add this in basically so that when I go to record this, because it's not proxied anymore, I have to now make a callback with the information so that it has the observability data. It's like logging a span in Datadog. And then you kind of close things out and it's done. So this will allow you to send a pick a prompt, put the variables in, send it through, log it, and get the key information there. I don't have the credentials saved on this machine. Otherwise, I'd log in and show you all, but it is pretty much like what you're seeing here. Pretty straightforward set of screens, easy to drill in. Like I said, it's not necessarily focused at the individual level. They're far more focused at the business-to-business type interactions. And I love and I hate them for that. Like, I really love the product to the point where I'd like to be able to use it in a personal capacity. But I respect their drive to be a more enterprise-level product, right? You're catering to one or the other, and if you try to cater to both, it starts to muddy the waters and become more complicated. So that's okay. They got some great stuff on, just great thought leadership on the blog as well. If you're really looking to kind of understand this space a bit more, understand what's happening in this ecosphere of generative AI and product, I'd give it a read. But overall, really like it. I see there is a get started for free option, so maybe they're a little less curated. When I first signed up, I got on a call with Ian and talked about what I was looking for, and he kind of gave me a demo. As is the norm in small startups, right? But they seem to be off to great success. Really enjoy it. It's what I use at work. I just wanted to mention it here because it has all the pieces I'm looking for. It's the one platform that really has everything that I want, the way I want it generally. And, I like it. Where I'm likely to end up in this whole big maze of things is Langsmith. Oh gosh, it does not look super awesome with the scrolly still. Let's go here. The reason I want to end up here is it's a pretty standard way of doing things. It looks pretty modular. I can plug various pieces in. It does do prompt versioning, some level of comparison, though I might still use my FreePlay account from work and do some prompt testing, because that's the biggest piece people seem to be missing. Well, there's two pieces people seem to be missing if we go back here. Fast experimentation, which they'll be like, oh, you can do prompt testing in the browser. That's great. That's table stakes for fast experimentation, right? I got to be able to compare Claude GPT 3.5 to 4.0 Mini. I want to be able to dial in that prompt model version. I'm going to save money there. I'm going to have a different user experience based on not everything should go through the latest ChatGPT 4 instance, or even when they bring out a new one. How do I test to make sure? Most people seem to have evals alongside their product, some version of observability, and no proxies. That's really the thing that gets me, right? So anyway, Langsmith's likely to be it. It's something that folks watching can pick up and work with. There is a free tier. I think the pricing is developer free for one user. That's exactly where I am. Then it's $39 a month. And okay, per user, that seems to be costing a bit of money. Um, not quite hitting all the things I'm looking for, but it's there, it's available. If maybe prompt layer isn't that bad with the proxying. I do believe they still proxy. I can't remember if they do or not. Maybe they don't, because I think you can plug in your own observability stuff. But these are things I'm going to explore, right? Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just out here trying to add value, find ways of making things with generative AI that people want to use. 5K traces per month, pay as you go thereafter. I think I'm fine for the near future here. Testing and evaluation, prompt management, monitoring. So this kind of ticks all the boxes. I'm a one-person show working with generative AI. Let's see here. I know there's a login somewhere. Continue with Google. Putting everything under my personal account just because. Here we are. All right, so we're in the Langsmith thing. They're telling us all 3 accounts will be limited. Sign up for our paid plans. I'll think about it. If I can start making a few bucks, maybe we'll get there. So here's the projects. I can go all sorts of monitory type things. Here's the setup, annotation queues, deployments, data sets, and training prompts. New prompt. I like the system human AI system tool function. Okay, so there's some interesting things we could do here to potentially build this out to be a bit more. Everyone basically wants me to get to adding a tool. Okay, and I need an open AI API key, which I do not have. But I can see, okay, cool. Oh, they do have a compare. Here we go. There's a reason I was picking this one. Okay, so just like FreePlay, I can go compare different models. Let's say I wanted to do the 4.0 Mini versus GPT 3.5 Turbo, which I guess there's no reason to think, but in my mind, for some reason, they're kind of equivocal. 3.5 versus kind of the similar thing in 4. And then I can go do this thing. It's still a little cumbersome. I think I'm going to have to plug in the different same inputs for both. Where in FreePlay I don't. I get that for free, kind of a side-by-side, plug it in, run it. But like I said, alas, I can't get everything I want. So this is where I'm going to probably be using for this tool. I'd like to get all this abstracted into some kind of pattern, probably some kind of repository type pattern for prompts, like I would for databases, just so that some of the guts of getting this up and running aren't as visible. I know it's a framework, but I still don't I want to be able to take it out at some point. I want to be able to iterate. I want to be able to experiment because that's still part of what I'm going after here at the end of the day. What are we looking at time-wise? I'm trying to think here. Oh, okay, cool. We're about 45 minutes in. I don't think I've got much more to do other than probably go get familiar with some of this. There's a lot going on here. It's newish to me. I want to make sure I can get my evals in. I want to make sure I can get my prompts in. I know how to manage them and work with them, and be in a happy days type situation. All right, so let's come back. We've gone through kind of the LLM tool ops, where we were, where we are. So like I said, no more. You're not going to see nearly as much like collaborative coding, at least around a lot of the core features that'll happen behind the scenes as and when. But we will be digging into more of these types of issues. I imagine the next few streams are going to be focused specifically around the LLM ops type thing, getting the prompts in, getting it to work, making all that happen. And then with some luck, hopefully by the end of this week, everything's live to the point that people can at least sign up for a free account and try. All right, folks. I appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you found this useful and informative, and have a great day. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.